What's up, YouTube? So, in this video, I'm going to be going over my top 10 offensive linemen for the 2022 NFL Draft Class. And at number 10, Bernard Raymond. Mostly a tackle, played he was actually a tight end before he was an offensive lineman, but I don't really care about that. So he's 6'7" and 305 pounds, and he is a very athletic offensive lineman, which makes sense considering he was a tight end. I do think technically he could definitely improve. I think his feet are pretty bad. I think eventually he might want to end up moving to guard just because that will eliminate some of what his feet are doing. But it's still going to have to improve, especially post contact. He does have a tendency to catch people instead of punch. He tends to lean forward a little bit, but he does have some really good knee bend. Base is a little bit inconsistent, but sometimes looks really good. He does sometimes play a little bit high, but he's getting better. Like I said, his knee bend is pretty solid. Not necessarily the most powerful person in the world, which is why it's kind of difficult to say where I want to put him. Because like I said, he's not necessarily weak. I think he does have an okay anchor. But that's what makes it hard to want to put him at guard because you're going to be dealing with 300-pound, defensive tackles. But his feet aren't that great either, so I don't really know where I'd want to put him right now. But he is a very, very athletic tackle. I think he's going to need quite a bit of development, though. But I think he is a solid developmental guy with the athletic profile to be very interesting, and I think he has the frame to get a lot stronger. But he is definitely going to be a bit of a project for you. So, and like I said, he hasn't been playing O-line for very long, so that's a thing. Moving on to number 9, Tyler Smith. This guy is just a guard. He's 6'5" and 324 pounds from Tulsa. My apologies. Very, very good knee bend, very good anchor, has real power to him, has some anger and nastiness to him. He plays tackle right now, but should absolutely be a guard. He gives up ground slowly very well when he's being bull rushed. And also in the run game, he absolutely moves people. He does have a tendency to get a little bit high, which is something I want to see him work on. Feet are a little heavy for a tackle, but I think if you move him to guard, they're fine. Can move a little bit, has some athleticism to him. And I think he'd be a very, very solid second-round guard. By the way, I think Bernard Raymond should be like a third-rounder, but if he's looked at as a tackle, he'll probably go earlier than that. So, yeah. Moving on to number 8, Trevor Pening. He's 6'7" and 321 pounds. Not super athletic, but I do think he should probably play guard. He's playing tackle right now, but I do think he'd be a better guard. He can second-level block okay, but it's definitely not his strongest suit. He does play with a lot of strength and anger, which is something I really love. He moves people well, loves to finish people. We'll probably have some penalty problems just because of his aggression. He definitely has some small technical things that he definitely needs to clean up, especially with like his hands and stuff like that. And definitely his feet. His feet are the main reason I want him to play guard instead, because I think he has the strength and anger to play guard with those 300-pound defensive tackles, more so than the quick, speedy edge rushers. But I see him as a solid second-round guy as well. And I think his strength would even be more effective if his technique was a little bit more sound. But right now, I think he's still a really, really solid player. I don't really like him as a tackle, though. If you like, right now, I wouldn't say he's that great because he's playing tackle. But if you move him to guard, I think he's a really, 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 really solid player. So, Ed Ingram is my number 7. He's 6'4" and 320 pounds from LSU. Very good movement, climbs the second level very well, especially for his size. Very good in zone or power schemes. Solid feet for a guard. Don't want him playing tackle, just keep him at guard. Definitely has plenty of strength. Great hand fighting. He doesn't settle for bad position. And he's always trying to get his hands inside. Sometimes they do miss, but like I said, he doesn't settle for bad hand position. He will continue to fight to get his hands back in there, which is great. Has a really solid anchor to him. deals with power very well. He isn't going to necessarily dominate players very consistently, but he is going to just do his job at a very solid level. And I think if you draft him in the second round, you're going to be happy with him for years to come. So, yeah, I think you'll really like what you get from him. Moving on to number 6, Zion Johnson, guard from Boston College. He is 6'3" and 316 pounds. I wanted him to move to guard last year and stay there full time, and he has, and it's really worked out. Very, very powerful guy. Gets his hands inside pretty well. He does have a tendency to lean forward, which is something I'm not a fan of because it's too easy to get your jersey pulled and you're going to end up on your face. But I just want to see him clean that up a little bit. Moves pretty well. Solid anchor. I think he's also another probably second round guy, but I could see him possibly sliding up to like late first, but probably more so a second round guy. Not going to be super flashy, but he's going to get the job done very well. And he does have experience playing tackle if you need him to do that in a pinch, like if you have some injuries there. But I think a more permanent position for him should be guard. So, moving on to number 5, Tyler Linderbaum, center from Iowa. So he's 6'3" and 290 pounds, and he moves very, very well. Keeps his head moving, very good leader. Is constantly looking for work, shows great effort and finish, really good scoop blocks. Could stand to get a little bit bigger and stronger, but he still has enough strength to get the job done. He's not going to straight up like murder people with his strength for sure. I think that is definitely somewhere he does need to improve. It's just getting a little bit stronger, but he has a very good anchor, very good knee bend. He does tend to cross his feet occasionally. I want to see him kind of clean that up. But his hands are solid as hell. Very, very intelligent player. I want him to stay at center because center is kind of hard to find. But I think he's a very, very solid player. I just think he needs to get a little bit stronger. And it's not necessarily what's holding him back. It's like why he's at 5 and not higher. There's just 4 people ahead of him that I just really, really like. So let's get on to number 4, Kenyan Green from Texas A&M. So he's 6'4" and 325 pounds, and I want him to play guard. I think he can play tackle, but I definitely think he should be a guard, and I think he'd be a fantastic one. At guard, he has really, really solid feet. At tackle, they're just kind of okay. Handles stunts very well. Great in combos. Hands could be a bit better, but I think they are solid enough to be a really good player. Great knee bend and anchor. Handles power extremely well. Fantastic in pass pro. Turns defenders away from the play and the run. Climbs very well. Smooth hips. Has plenty of strength and nastiness to him. Moves well in the run game. Can play tackle or guard, like I said, and has experience doing it, but I do think he should probably play guard. So I am just a really big fan of him. So, moving on to number 3, Ikem Ekwonu from NC State. He's 6'4" and 320 pounds, and he plays powerful and angry as hell. He climbs to second level fairly well, gets his hands inside pretty consistently. Sometimes tends to punch with one hand in pass sets and just tries to use his strength in that way. So I kind of want to see him kind of clean that up. Also tends to lean forward sometimes, which makes cloth pulls a little bit easy to beat him with. But he's very, very raw. He sometimes looks lost on who he's supposed to block. Feet are definitely a work in progress, but they show flashes. He is just a physical specimen. He's very athletic for his size and very powerful and angry. Loves to finish people, but he is very raw. He's definitely going to be a project player for you. I think he has the athletic talent to start day one, and I think his ceiling is only going to go up from there. And he should absolutely be a tackle. So, moving on to my number 2, Charles Cross from Mississippi State. He is a tackle. 6'5" and 310 pounds. Very, very good knee bend. Very, very good anchor. Deals with power pretty well. I wouldn't necessarily say he's super strong, but he deals with power well. Has really, really solid technical hands. Will fight to get his hands inside if he doesn't get it initially. Keeps his feet moving through contact, solid length, deals with stunts very well. He can play a little bit of guard too, but I definitely think he should stay at tackle. He pops his feet very well, gives up ground slowly. He changes his target quickly, like I said, with gap exchanges and stuff. I think he could stand to be a little bit stronger and meaner. He's not going to necessarily dominate you, but he is just going to beat you technically. But I just really, really like this guy. He is, in my opinion, the most technically sound offensive lineman in this class. Besides maybe Tyler Linderbaum. I think those two are probably the closest. And honestly, the top three between Akeem, I'll go to the last guy just so you can see. It's Evan Neal from Alabama. So I'll talk about Evan Neal, and then I'll kind of compare my top three afterwards. So he's 6'7" and 360 pounds, just big as fuck. And for his size, he can really move. His feet are actually pretty solid for his size as well. I definitely think he should stay at tackle. Really, really solid knee bend, good base, gets his hands inside consistently. Definitely plays with a lot of anger to him. Has some really, really solid technique. Like I said, for his size, he moves very well. Pretty good in zone, even better in man, though, of course, just because of his size and strength. I think he is just a really, really solid player. So I kind of wanted to compare my top three between Evan Neal, Charles Cross, and Akeem Ekwonu. I had a hard time kind of ranking those three because Akeem is the most physically interesting prospect in this offensive line group for this class. He is the strongest. He's super athletic, mean as hell. He has all the physical traits to be a very, very good player, but he is very, very raw. Charles Cross doesn't have the athleticism or the strength you're looking for let me rephrase that. Because he has plenty of strength and athleticism to be a really good tackle. But it's just not up there with Akeem. Akeem is the most physically dominant player, at least offensive lineman in this class. Charles Cross, his athleticism and strength, doesn't quite compare to that, but he's the most technically sound. But I think that Evan Neal is like the ideal middle ground between them. I think his technique is really solid, but isn't as good as Charles Cross's technique. And I think his athleticism and strength is more than enough to be a really good tackle at the NFL level, but isn't quite there with Akeem. So depending on what you're looking for, if you're looking for a high ceiling player with a lot of physical traits, I could see why you would have Akeem Ekwonu as your number one offensive lineman. If you are someone who looks for technique above all else, I could see why you would have Charles Cross as your number one. And for a long time, to be honest, Charles Cross was my number one. But just the more I thought about it, and just Evan Neal kind of being that middle ground between the two of them, it just made sense to put him number one. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, I appreciate you hitting that like button. If you have any questions or comments in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.